Jalen cut his hair and started hooping like me. LOL. You're welcome, bro.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today, we are looking back at Monday's games in the NBA where weird shit was happening left, right, and center. The entire league was feeling sick, so there's just absolute nonsense happening right across the game sphere. We're also going to preview the New Year's Eve games. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. And this is probably going to be, this is going to be the last podcast that I record for you in 2019. Of course, I'll be back for 2020 with everything going. But again, just a chance to say thank you to everybody for all the support during this season. It's been fantastic to see everybody be so supportive, and new listeners, old viewers, readers, consumers, Basketball Monster members, whatever you are. It's been so great to have you guys here, and I look forward to more in 2020. Let's talk about these games, though, now for Monday in the NBA. And as I said, just weird shit happening right across the league. The Miami Heat went into Washington to take on a Washington Wizards team that was without Bradley Beal and Mo Wagner and Davis Bertans and Rui Hachimura and Thomas Bryant. So, of course, they lost by 18 points. The Wizards win 123-105. Butler had 27, 6, and 4, but no peripherals. He got to the line 19 times, so that was fantastic there. But 14 and 14 from Bam as well with no defensive stats. It was just a weird day in the NBA. The Spur, Dunk Robinson, he had 16 points, including 3 triples. He had 8 really early, nothing in the middle of the game, and then got some really late in the game. He is just that 3-point streamer type, while Derek Jones Jr. provided the defensive stats that he can, but when Justice Winslow eventually returns at some point, if he's still alive, Jones's minutes are going to drop. Jones had 9 points with 3 steals and a block. I did pre-record a buy low segment. That I actually don't even know why I'm referring to the buy low segment. I got myself mixed up. Earlier today, I released a droppable player list. Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Herro were both on that. Now, Nunn did finish with 14 points in 34 minutes. He did make a lot of that up and got a bucket right at the end of this game when it was pretty much over. But he ended with 14 points on 36% shooting in 34 minutes. But this is a game that Dragic only played 23 minutes. You give those extra 5 minutes to Dragic, they come off Nunn's line. I don't see him lasting as a 12-team league guy. And Tyler Herro only played 20 minutes. That is not going to cut it. Both guys are 12-team drops, in my opinion. As for Dragic, he has been a 12-team guy, but he struggled here, 10 points on 12 shots. While Myers Leonard outplayed Kelly Olynyk for the second consecutive game. 24 minutes for Myers, 7 and 7, while Olynyk only played 3 minutes, basically out of the rotation. For the Wizards, again, just weird shit going on all over the place. Remember the big mitten Gary Payton, who started and played big minutes, and we loved what his steals were? Well, he started and played 14 minutes. Now, he still had 3 steals there, so he still got that value, but he is not a long-term option, in my opinion. There are so many guys here that have to return. He is not young. He's 27 years of age. He's not a long-term piece of anyone's future. He can be a steal streamer, but he's not a must-roster guy. These are the things that I talked about. Yeah, it's really short-term. And the same goes for the big performances from Jordan McRae and Garrison Matthews today. Now, McRae was fantastic. 35 minutes, 29 points, 6 triples, 8 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, 64% shooting. Really good stuff from McRae. Last game, he played 29 minutes and looked good as well. But in a 12-team league, when one of these guys comes back, namely Beal, he goes back to a 20-minute-a-night role. And while he might score 13 points, that's not enough to be a 12-team league player. McRae can do this. McRae can be a good player. We're all well aware of that. But these opportunities, they just don't exist like this. Now, could Beal's leg soreness be an issue due to the fact that he's had stress reactions and fractures in that leg before? Of course. Was it ridiculous that Scott Brooks plays in 40 minutes every single bloody night? Of course it is. Could those two things be related? I'm not a doctor, but maybe they could be. Who knows? We'll see. I don't know if Beal's going to miss any more time. Maybe he does. Maybe they go easy on him, as they should. But they also should have done that for the final 3 months of last season, and they didn't. So working out what the Wizards are going to do in terms of the rotation is a tough one. Now, is McRae a 14-team league edge? Sure. Do you need a short-term boost in points in 12-team leagues? Sure. Going at him. But as we see with Peyton, nothing's set in stone here. Isaiah Thomas played only 22 minutes. He shot poorly, and the bench got things going. Garrison Matthews had 28 points on 6 of 9 shooting and went to the line 13 times and hit 12 of them. These are unrealistic performances. Garrison is a two-way guy who's been getting 10 minutes a night and said he played 29 here. Ian Mahinmi had 14 points in about the first 5 minutes, ended with a career-high 25. And he also, amazingly, had a Richie Beno.
2 for 2.
2 threes for Ian Mahinmi. 2 steals, 2 blocks, 91% shooting. What on earth is going on in this game? I think we can almost just throw this entire game out and go, well, this is all bullshit because it's not going to happen. Now, when Bertans and Bryant and Hachimura and Wagner come back, will Mahinmi even play? Probably not. So again, short term, you want a rebound boost, a block boost, a field goal percentage? Maybe. But this is unrealistic. He's not going to do this as we move forward. Troy Brown started over Isaac Bonga. He was not good. He's much better in that bench role. He's more of a fringe 12-team guy to 14-team league player. The composer, Jonathan Williams, started and did jack shit. 0 points in 18 minutes. Not a surprise. Andrzej Pasechniks played 18 minutes and had 10 boards with 2 blocks. He can be a 14 to 16-team league short-term guy. Ish Smith played 31 minutes and had 19 points with 7 assists. But he's up and down all night. Every night. Like, we just don't know what he's going to do. There's just so much uncertainty with this team. So take a flyer on Jordan McRae if you want. But when the 5 guys that have to return are 5 of the highest shot users and minute getters on this entire team, like, how the hell is he going to be able to replicate this? Like, it's almost impossible to see. Maybe almost impossible. Now, as I calm down from that little explosion of passion, it's time that we talked about something that is important to everybody. I know it's important to me, and that's mental fitness. We talk about physical fitness. We're talking about Beal and his fractured leg here, or potentially a past stress fracture in his leg. But mental fitness is something that we need to focus on a lot. And Calm, the #1 app for sleep and meditation, has teamed up with LeBron James to help you train your mind. For LeBron, sleep is an important part of his mental fitness routine. I know it's important for me. If I don't sleep, then my brain's scrambled and I talk gibberish. You might say that's like normal. But getting sleep and being relaxed when you go to bed is super important. LeBron says getting good sleep and finding the time to rest is one of the most valuable things that I can do for my body and mind. And if you head to calm.com/lockedonnba, you'll get 40% off a Calm Premium membership. It's a limited time discount offer, 40% off, by joining LeBron and using Calm at calm.com. That's CALM for those of you that can't understand my accent. Calm.com/lockedonnba. Unlock content to help you focus, to ease stress, and to sleep better. Get started at calm.com/lockedonnba. That's calm.com/lockedonnba. Let's now move on to the next game of the day. We have got the Atlanta Hawks and the Orlando Magic. And if you thought it wasn't enough that we're getting big Ian Mahinmi games and blokes called Garrison Matthews going off, for the Hawks, who win 101-93 over the Magic, Brandon Goodwin, yes, that's a real player as well. 21 points in 22 minutes, 6 assists, 3 threes, 2 steals, 1 block. On 64% shooting. He took advantage of the fact that Trae Young was out. He was a guy that I talked about it in one of the podcasts end of last week, that he was going to get a deep league opportunity. Maybe I wrote it on Basketball Monster, I don't remember. But no one expected this out of him. He's a decent player. He's a better option than Evan Turner at backup point guard. You could see him getting some playing time, but this is just a deep league situation in the situation where Young is out. My mate, Vanderpants, Kevin Huerter, 19, 6, and 4. He also had a Richie Beno.
2 for 2.
Why is he on a waiver wire? He shouldn't be. I like him. Maybe I like him too much. Maybe it's the red hair. Maybe it's the fact that he's actually good. And we're starting to see that come his way now. So big numbers from him. He was one of those guys that I mentioned on the Buy Low podcast. Maybe that's not going to actually look so buy lowy after today's performance. The Baptist John Collins struggled. Only 10 points on 9 shots, but 11 rebounds. Yeah, not his best night. Well, DeAndre Hunter scored well. But when you look at these lines, people might go, oh, look at that. Huerter had 19 points and Hunter had 16. Why are you so big on Huerter and so down on Hunter? Well, Hunter had 0 assists, 1 steal, and 0 blocks. Missed both his free throws. He hit 3 threes, but he just doesn't do enough in those other areas. I like him for 14-teamers, no doubt, but not for 12s. Alex Len looked great. He's so much better off the bench. Len, 18 and 12 in 24 minutes. He's a 14-team league type of player as well, because Damian Jones and Bruno Fernando aren't getting it done, while Cam Reddish continues to be trash. 2, 3, and 3 in his 26 minutes. Interestingly, there was no Jabari Parker here, so Vince Carter was in the rotation, but Alan Crabb only played the 10 minutes in this one. For the Magic, Nikola Vucevic, 27-6 with 2 steals. Big game from him, and as I expected, Aaron Gordon did not play. Thankfully, the Magic didn't make him push through that Achilles soreness. With him out, Wizawundu started and predictably did nothing. Fournier got those extra shots, 21 shot attempts for 22 points. Not much in the peripheral counting stats for Evan, who has dropped off since Vooch has returned. While DJ Augustin also picked up the slack, 17, 5 and 6 for Deej in 29 minutes. That's an unreliable type of number for him. He provides okay 3-point and point stream options, especially for 14-teamers, but not a reliable guy. While Johnny Isaac had 13 and 9. Of course, he had 3 steals. Of course, he had 2 blocks. And 1 of 5 from the line is the only disappointing feature of that. Markel Fultz was pretty poor here. 3 points on 7 shots, 1 of 2 from the line. His percentages have dropped off quite a bit recently. The minutes are still good. The 7 rebounds and 5 assists and a steal are still pretty okay. But if you want to move on in a 10-team league, I understand it. He seems to have stagnated a little bit. Maybe there's not that upward growth that we hoped. He's still providing okay type numbers. And if you're going solidly, I would hold. But he is moving into that droppable type territory at this stage. Well, Terry Ross was pretty bad. 4 points on 11 shots, as he sometimes is prone to be. Next game up, we look at the Brooklyn Nets and the Minnesota Timberwolves. An overtime classic. Overtime game, at least. Still no Kyrie. Still no Karis LeVert. Spencer Dinwiddie did his best to destroy your percentages. 36 points, but 39% from the field. 69% Giggity. From the line on 13 attempts. That's really, really negative performances there. But 5 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 threes. Good overall counting stats. While the artist formerly known as Torian Prince, he went one better and shot 23% from the field. Did have 14 boards, had 2 steals, had 2 dribbles, so helped there. The rebounds have been much improved from Prince this season. And if you're not punting field goals, he's really tough to roster. He's been abysmal most of the year in terms of his shooting. DeAndre Jordan outplayed Jarrett Allen here, 6 and 13 with 3 blocks. Always good surprise to get blocks from DeAndre Jordan.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
I still think he's over-rostered in 12-team leagues, while Allen was bad here, 6 and 5 in those 26 minutes. 41 minutes for Garrett Temple, 20 minutes for Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot. They're going to lose playing time when Karis LeVert comes back. Luwawu-Cabarrot continues to look good, 11 points, 3 threes, 5 rebounds in his time, while Smoke and Joe Harris had 19 and 7 with 3 threes there. He's more of a fringe 12-teamer, I believe. The Minnesota Timberwolves, there was no Karl Anthony Towns. There was no Andrew Wiggins. There was no Jake Layman. And then we had no Trevion Graham. And as a late situation, Noah Vonleh was out. We had Jeff Green go to the locker room with a sore knee.
My name is Jeff.
We had Bob Covington go to the locker room with a sore thumb. Both of those guys returned, but it was disastrous. So we got some weird-ass starting lineups. Keelan Martin started. Now, he played well last game. He didn't so much here. 9 points in 35 minutes. Jarrett Culver started, and this was probably his best game. 21 points looks great. 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, 1 block, 3 triples. Great. He still shot 38% from the field and 50% from the line. The threes went in at a decent rate. The defense has been there for the last week or so. But I don't think that this 38-minute performance from Culver means that he's going to be getting these sort of minutes as we move forward. A lot of shit had to go down. Graham, Wiggins, and Towns all had to be out for this to come to fruition. And previously, he was getting like 16 minutes a night. So maybe he's a 14-team league ad. Maybe you want to take a fly. But even I think best case scenario for him, he's a fringe 12-teamer. Josh Okogie is just bad, man. He sucks. He only played 18 minutes in this game. That's how bad he is going at the moment. While Teague only the 20 minutes, 9, 3, and 4. With Teague banged up, Shabazz Napier played 34 minutes and looked great. 24 points, 8 assists, 2 steals, and he'd looked pretty good prior to the previous 2 games where he only played 22 minutes. He's more of a guy, if you're looking for some assists, as he's the starting point guard, he's providing those. A couple of 9 assist games, an 8 assist game here. The scoring is going to go back and forth, but he's at least got some value there as a 12-team league guy. He's not a must-roster guy by any means. But there is something there. While Bob Covington, with all these guys out, he's playing better and playing more minutes, more importantly. 14 and 7, 3 threes, 2 blocks, 1 steal. I would see if I can sell high on him. You might not be able to, but this is 3 relatively solid games in a row from Covington, and maybe you can convince someone. Naz Reid, the other name here, 13 points. Now, he was just as bad as Culver in terms of shooting, and his defense is a disaster. 31% from the field, but he can shoot a little bit. 3 threes, a steal, and a block. Just unlikely to see him get big rotation minutes. While Gorgie Jeng, while Towns is out, you got to look at him. 11 and 20, 3 steals, a block, great value in the short term, while Towns happens to be out, and then we just don't know how long it's going to be, unfortunately, so that makes him just a stream guy at this point. The next game that we come in now and take a look at, The Milwaukee Bucks, they smacked the Bulls 123-102. Giannis Antetokounmpo was returning from his back injury, 23, 10 and 6, great stuff. Or Eric Bledsoe also came back. Now, Bledsoe only needed 16 minutes to put up a full game's worth of production. 15, 3 and 3 with 4 steals. That's great. There was no Wes Matthews here, so the big Ragu, Dante DiVincenzo, shifted over to shooting guard. 2, 5 and 4. I reckon we can drop him, though, now with Bledsoe returning. Robin Lopez blocked 4 shots, so that's also
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
This game was just so all over the place that the Bulls were terrible that, it's hard to get a full read on the Bucks. Probably George Hill, if you had him in at 12, you can drop him now. While Brook Lopez had 11 and 4 with 2 blocks. Middleton, 25, 6 and 4 was good also. For the Bulls, I talked about it on the DFS preview yesterday that Kobe White played well last time against the Bucks. He did it again, 18 points. It did take 18 shots to get there, but four steals is nice, and that's mainly because Chris Dunn was terrible in this game. Dunn only 19 minutes, 4 points on 6 shots with 2 assists and a steal. Now, I don't think that this is an indication that White is taking Dunn's minutes as we move forward. Or maybe that happens at some point, but I think Dunn is still the 12-team guy you want. Larry Markkinen was recovering from an illness, so he only played 27 minutes, 18 and 6 with 5 threes. Well, Wendell Carter also had a trip to the locker room, 10 and 11 with a steal and a block. Now, if you're in a situation where you've got stashability, I think Dan Gafford's a guy you got to look at. 8 and 4, 2 steals, a block. If Carter goes down, and he's proven to be a guy that seems to get banged up quite a bit, Gafford's going to start. He's going to be a top 100 guy. So he's just a name to watch. Satoransky had 10, 2 and 7 in only 26 minutes. Some foul trouble did limit him, while Levine had 19, 4 and 5. Horrible shooting nights. There's so many weirdly high, like 65% shooting nights, and then all these piss poor 30% ones. 30% for Levine on 23 attempts. Just really, really pissing all over your field goal percentage for your fantasy lineup. All right, next game up, we look at the Utah Jazz, who absolutely spanked the Pistons 104-81 in Utah. There was no Blake Griffin. There was no Luke Kennard. There was no Markieff Morris. Of course, Reggie Jackson still remains out. Of course, Christian Wood, the crucifix, he didn't get the start despite the fact that both Griffin and Morris were out. They put Tony Snell at power forward. Dwayne Casey, he's not a good coach. Anyway, it didn't really matter in the end because Wood still played 28 minutes and had 11 and 9, but some of the decisions this bloke makes are really troubling. As for Wood, as long as Griffin is out, there is some value there, but when everyone's healthy, he just struggles to get enough playing time to make an impact. So you can look at him as a short-term stream guy. The big avocado, Andre Drummond, was great, 15 and 13, 5 steals, 3 blocks, poor percentage, really poor percentage. Spencer Dinwiddie would be proud of those, but otherwise good numbers. While the Shark, Bruce Brown,
Baby shark,
37 minutes is great, 29% shooting isn't. 8 points, 8 rebounds, 2 steals. He's providing okay value, more of a 14-team league guy, but again, how he fits in when everyone's back is really a big question. Tony Snell played 28 minutes, and you'd be shocked to know he did absolutely nothing. Well, Derrick Rose had 20 points in 26 minutes. That's, again, his continual limit. Svi Mikhailuk, 32 minutes, replacing Kennard, 13 points with 3 threes for him. He's just like a 16-team league stream guy for those 3-pointers. While Tim Frazier started, he was the one who actually Brown is the one who came in to replace Griffin. Frazier started a point guard again, 6, 3 and 3. I don't know why this guy continues to get minutes or starting roles wherever he seems to go. He has like 2 good games that he stinks the rest of the time. He is not a fantasy long-term option. For the Jazz, Gobert in 35 minutes, 13 and 19 with 2 steals and 3 blocks. The Donovan Mitchell.
He's Don. He's good.
23 points. Jordy Clarkson had 20 in 27 minutes. Really strong shooting numbers from Clarko, 54% from the field there. Nothing much else, but those points can be valuable. It's more of a 14-team league scenario long-term. While Jingle and Joe had 10, 5 and 5, and Bojan Bogdanovic, some poor shooting, but 17 points on 15 shots is not too bad. Tone Bradley again in the rotation over Ed Davis, while Royce O'Neal did have a bit of an ankle problem here. That limited him to 25 minutes. We got some Juwan Morgan, 7 minutes for him, and this game got so out of hand that Nigel Williams-Goss played 2 minutes, still waiting on the return, of course, of Mike Conley. And then on to the last game of the night, the Phoenix Suns with a big comeback to get the victory over the Blazers, 122-116. Kelly Oubre was fantastic. 40 minutes, 7 triples in his 29 points, 3 steals and a block. He had a massive usage, 50% shooting. Maybe this is a bit of a sell high for Oubre. I'm not sure you're going to be able to execute it, but he has been playing really well. Big minutes for him. Big minutes for Devin Booker, who had 33, 6 and 7. Weirdly, did not even attempt a single three-pointer. That is exceptionally weird for Booker. Now, he was 15 of 15 from the line, which is excellent, but no threes at all, no steals, no blocks. It sort of decreases the fantasy value. As for ravishing Rick Rubio, hey, hit the music. 18 points in 35 minutes, 13 assists and a steal. Big from him as well, while McCall Bridges also looked really good. They need to find this guy minutes. 31 minutes, 13, 3 and 3, a steal and a block. You know who they should just piss off? Dario Saric, who played 17 minutes and had 2 points. You need to piss him off as well. He's not a 10. He's not a 12. He's probably not even a 14-team league guy at this point. Back to McCall Bridges. He's playing well. We're getting minutes for him. They are gradually going up. He is more of a guy that we look at as a 14-team league guy, but he's someone absolutely to watch. Now, Deandre Ayton did return from his ankle injury. He came off the bench, was on a bit of a minutes limit, and also had some foul trouble. That's why he only played 20 minutes. 6 and 12. Now, he was shit to begin the game. Also played pretty well at the end. I don't think we need to worry too much. While Bainesy had 12 and 9 in his 27 minutes, those minutes are going to come down pretty quickly. And encouragingly, Frank Kaminsky out of the rotation entirely. That's great. With Baines there, we're getting more of that small ball type situation with Johnson and Bridges and Oubre playing the four, which is exactly what the Suns should do. As for Portland, Hassan Whiteside. The world! 16 and 22 for Whiteside, 3 blocks, continues his strong form. I don't really see any reason why it's going to drop off, to be honest. While Lillard had 33, 5 and 7, and McCollum had 25, 2 and 6. Big nights from those three guys, all with over 50% shooting. As for Melo, yeah, it was rough. 37 minutes for Carmelo Anthony, 10, 3 and 2. He got a block late, 25% shooting. I've banged on about how, I wrote an article about it last week, how his steal rate, his block rate, his 3-point percentage were all hovering near career best, and there's going to be a level of regression. We've seen that come pretty hard over the last couple of games. I still believe he's a 12-team league guy, but if he ends up outside the top 120 pretty soon, I wouldn't be surprised, because we saw it in Houston. We saw it in OKC. Those limited assists and steals and blocks, the poor shooting, the poor field goal percentage, the poor 3-point percentage, the below average numbers right across the board means he's not a useful player. Now, he's been useful so far this season. Absolutely exceeded my expectations. But these sort of nights are what I thought we'd see more of. And it is worth noting that some of these career numbers are starting to come back down to earth. Kent Bazemore started with Scala Bissiere out. He did nothing, 6 and 4. And Gaz Trent picked it up, 11 points in 22 minutes for Trent. 3 triples with a steal. That's at least worth looking at in a deep league. Apparently rostered in 0% of leagues, so you've got to have a look at him in those 20-teamers, 30-teamers. While Anthony Simons had 12 points in his 25 minutes, taking some of Bazemore's playing time, while Anthony Tolliver got Labissiere's, or some of Labissiere's minutes, 9 points for him with 9 minutes for him with 3 points, hit a 3, and weirdly had 3 assists there as well. Let's look at some injury news now before we head on to the DFS stuff. It looks like Karis LeVert's return is going to be coming soon. Those tricky nets, they won't give us any sort of timetable, but it does appear we're going to have Karis back pretty soon. While D'Angelo Russell and Willie Cauley-Stein are both out for the Golden State Warriors for tomorrow. Kai Bowman is questionable with an illness, so there is going to be some opportunity for guys like Alec Burks, Damian Lee, Glenn Robinson. So we'll get a bit of a boost in their value. With Cauley-Stein out, Marquise Chris as well, another guy we look at. Timmy Hardaway and Luka Doncic are both questionable for Dallas for Tuesday's game, so that looks like we've escaped too much of a serious issue with Hardaway. I still don't think that he is a must-roster guy. And then some other injury news as well. Patrick Beverley is going to miss a few games with his wrist issue. That's probably going to mean more minutes for Lou Williams, and deeper leagues will want to take a look at someone like Derek Walton, while Bradley Beal missed a second consecutive game, as I mentioned, with that leg issue. I don't know why I've got Cauley-Stein and Russell on there twice in terms of their absence from the Warriors in San Antonio. So let's move over now to talk about some DFS. We're going to be looking at FanDuel pricing for Tuesday's games. All right, the first game we look at on New Year's Eve, the Philadelphia 76ers is going to take on the Indiana Pacers. In Indiana, the Pacers are actually, the Sixers are favored by 1, and the total here is 212. Ben Simmons is probable with an illness. Malcolm Brogdon is set to return from his hamstring injury, while Edmund Sumner is questionable with knee soreness. He wasn't even necessarily going to be in the rotation with everyone healthy regardless, so not a big DFS option there. Now, Brogo is down at 6,200. Even before the injury, his production had been a little bit under. I don't completely dislike him here, but it's not a bad option. The Sixers defense is probably the disqualifying scoring factor here for Brogdon, and Simmons matching up there could be a problem. McConnell at 3,800 against his former team, just not enough minutes, while Simo, that's it, 9,200 for Ben. He'd been averaging over 50 over his last 5. No reason to think that he can't be at least a 45-point guy, which makes him a cash option. And the only reason that you would steer clear of that is because of the illness, and maybe he's a little under the weather, but I think he'll be able to push through. We are still 24 hours out, or around 24 hours out when this illness designation came out, for him to be ready to go. Aaron Holiday at 5,000 with Brogdon back. His value should drop off pretty significantly and unlikely to be an option. Shooting guards, you've got Furkan Korkmaz. He's not interesting to me. While Josh Richardson's at 6,000, there are better ways, I think, to spend 6,000 than on Josh. While Jeremy Lamb also at 5,000. The return of Brogdon does cramp that guard rotation a little bit. At small forward, Tony Warren Jr. is at 5,100. I really like him at that sort of a salary. He's been averaging 34 a night over the last 3, so that's pretty good. While Toby Harris, the numbers for him recently haven't been great. He's at 6,800. I would much rather go 51 on Warren than spend 68 on Tobias Harris. Justin Holiday, he's averaging 9 points in his last 3 games. Power forwards, Horford's really struggling at the moment. He's at 6,200. Big men have had some decent success against the Pacers this season. I'd only want to use Horford as a GPP guy, but in a matchup against Sabonis and Turner, I could see him making sense. As for Sabonis at 8,000, also been a little bit under where he needs to be. This matchup could be a tough one. I would fade off of him. And then on to the big men. Embiid's at 9,900. Embiid just seems to drop close to 50 most games. That makes him a pretty good cash option here, while Miles Turner is exactly the opposite of a good option in any real sort of DFS format. Next up, we go to the Boston Celtics and Kemba Walker. They travel back to Charlotte. Both of the games that Boston and Charlotte have played this season have been in Boston's favour by over 20 points. So there is a real blowout risk here. The Celtics are only favoured by 6.5, and the total is 208.5 points. At point guard, Terry Rozier is at 6,300. He's averaged 21 in the games against Boston this year. He would not be a high priority for me, while Kemba's been a little bit off with some of his numbers, but still at 7,500, I think we can feel okay. Now, he averages just 27 in those revenge games against Charlotte, so yeah, you got to take, I guess, marginally that into account. Mainly also the fact that Charlotte has been pretty good at defending point guards. Both Rozier and Walker, not strong DFS options. If I'm going to pick one, it would be Terry. Brad Wanamaker, no thank you. At shooting guard, Marcus Smart returning from his eye issue. I wouldn't want to get too invested in him, while Devontae Graham at 7,700. He's put up numbers almost every game, except for the ones against Boston, where he's averaging just 31 points. Granted, in 28 minutes, more of a GPP guy to me, with guys like Smart and Brown who can switch on to him. For your small forwards, Gordo Hayward's at 6,500. Even in the games where it seems like he's been struggling, he's still getting you 30 a night, which is good at that sort of a salary. So I think he is a worthwhile prospect. I should have mentioned Jaylen Brown earlier as well. And if I could Jaylen Brown might be out of this game. Let me just double check my injury status here on Jaylen, because something is not right on my screen. Yes, my apologies. Jaylen Brown is out with the illness that seems to be afflicting the entirety of the NBA. I wonder what that's about. With Christmas recently having passed and New Year's coming up, it seems like 50% of the league is out with an illness. So Jaylen is out. That does bump Marcus Smart's value in that scenario. That's the only reason you'd want to consider Smart really as an option. But at 5,000 price tag, he should start and move into that role. At small forward, Miles Bridges has been giving us nothing, so I don't think we should reward him with a play. Not that he gives a shit, but I don't think he's going to be an option. While at power forward, Jason Tatum's at 7,800. He's averaging 46 against Charlotte. Their matchup on him is not going to be great. I think at 7,800 there is some appeal, but the blowout risk here sours me a little on him. Daniel Tice is not going to make me feel good about using him, but PJ Washington is at 5,200. Even with some of his deficiencies in his game, I think at that sort of a 5,200 price tag, he is an absolute lock to give us value. Daniel Tice, no thank you. Grant Williams similarly. And at centre, Bismack Biyombo's at 48. He's been okay as a cash guy, around those low to mid-20s, which is fine at that salary, getting the start over Cody Zeller, whereas Zeller is a little bit more up and down, and he costs more. And then you got Enes Kanter at 4,900, who is a really good matchup. We know centers play well against Charlotte. Kanter has been playing at a pretty decent level, 29 points over the last 5 games. And at 4,900, there's good value there. So I think he is at least somewhat of an option in this one for Boston against Charlotte. Next up, we've got the Clippers and the Kings. The Clippers are 7-point favorites, and the total is 223 points. The table, Montrezl Harrell is questionable for the Clippers with, of course, What else? An illness, while Patrick Beverley is out with his wrist issue. Bagley is out in Sacramento, while De'Aaron Fox is probable with his back issue. If we go to the point guards here in this one, Foxy's at 7,300. He hasn't really missed a beat since returning. This matchup's not a great one for him, but it does help that Beverley is out, so you might want to get on him in that scenario. I imagine that Lou Williams will start, and we'll get Derek Walton Jr. into the rotation to give us some minutes there at point guard for the Clippers. Shamet's at 3,700. Look, he's been around 18 points a game. With Beverley out, there's an opportunity for more minutes for Sham here at this one. His upside's really low, and I don't think he's a really strong DFS option. And with Fox likely to play, Corey Joseph is not going to get it done. Lou Williams at 5,200 is an absolute lock to me. He's averaging 29 over the last 5, an opportunity to run point. That's a really low price for Williams. I have to like that one. While Bogdan Bogdanovic at 53, he's all up and down at the moment. Only 19 points last game. The shot wasn't falling. The matchup's not a good one. I'm not keen there. I am more keen on Budrick Hield, though, at 6,200, who had been pretty piss poor prior to last game, averaging just 27 points over his last 5, and that includes the 44 that he dropped in his last one. I think we can do better at shooting guard. And then for small forward, Paul George at 7,900. The Beatle has been a little bit down over his last couple of games, but with a 46-point average against the Kings, a positive matchup, I do think that he's at least worth a GPP. Look, the pencil Harrison Barnes at 4,500, not doing it for me. Good old Barnesy. Trevor Ariza, Mo Harkless, no thanks. At power forward, Nemanja Bjelica's at 4,900. Starting again for Bagley, have to like him at that price, while Richaun Holmes at 66. He should see his minutes push up into the mid to high 30s as well with Bagley out, so we have to like him there. While the fun guy, Kawhi Leonard.
I'm a fun guy.
He's at 9,500. That's a lot. I would much rather take Paul George at 79. That price discrepancy makes me want to go in George's direction. At center, well, if Harrell is out, Zubats becomes a great option at 4,300, an absolute lock, must-play guy in that type of scenario. Otherwise, it is hard to rely on him. While Harrell at 5,300, if he plays, that's a great price for Montrez as well, averaging 39 the last 3 times that he has taken on the Sacramento Kings. So some really good opportunities for him if he does happen to play. The next game we take a look at is the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're going to take on the Toronto Raptors. No current spread out for this one. Kevin Love is listed as probable with a right hip injury. He missed the last game and Larry Nance started in his place, but it looks like Love will be back in action. Of course, no Marc Gasol, Norman Powell, or Pascal Siakam for Toronto. At point guard, Kyle Lowry is at 7,800. Really strong floor, 31 minimum over his last 5. Great opportunity, great matchup against Sexton and Garland, old Sexland over there in the backcourt. They stop absolutely no one, so great opportunity for Lowry at that sort of a salary. Garland's at 42. He had 35 last time out against this team, which is obviously a really strong number. Can he get there again? That's the big question, only for tournaments. While the Padawan, Colin Sexton at 51. I like his cash floor at that number. Exum and Dellavedova, no thank you. At shooting guard, Terrence Davis looked really good last game, 29 minutes. He's at 3,900, and the matchup is what really makes me go, he is worth an absolute look at that sort of a salary. He's averaging 20 over his last 5 anyway, so even if he doesn't exceed what he did last game, or even approach it, he's still got some value there. I like what he's doing. Fred VanVleet at 8,200. I prefer Lowry to him, but I still like Fred. And Paddy McCaw's at 43. He's getting a shit ton of minutes, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily translating into great DFS numbers. At small forward, the Jedi, OG Anunoby.
Hello there.
He is struggling. I don't really like him here. The matchup's okay for him, but the struggles with him are real. I think he's more of a GPP guy because someone like O'Shea Brissett has been getting his minutes. Now, he is not an option, Brissett, but it is impacting what OG can do. Chetty Osman, no thank you. And then you've got Kevin Porter, who's at 4,100, who I really like, who's getting that increased opportunity. At power forward, Ibaka's at 7,000. That's maybe pushing it a little bit too far, but this matchup is so tasty for Serge that he's worth a look, especially for GPPs. Boucher, the Water Boys at 48. Well, if this does turn into a blowout and Ibaka plays 25 minutes, then Boucher will beat that number, but that, of course, is only a GPP play. While Love at 7,300, I'd feel pretty rough about using him. Same with Henson or Nance. At center, it's Tristan Thompson, who's at 6,400, who's like a 29-point guy, which is not enough at 6,400. I would probably lean in a different direction than spending that money on him in this one. Next game up, we've got the Golden State Warriors, the San Antonio Spurs. Some real confusion with the injury report here for Golden State. Initially, it was reported that Willie Cauley-Stein and D'Angelo Russell would both be out with, guess what, an illness. Then the report came out that Cauley-Stein isn't on the trip, and Russell's status wouldn't be updated until the next day, so he was questionable. And then the official injury report came out about an hour later, and he was out. The lubricant Kai Bowman is also questionable, while the Wizard Omari Spellman, who's missed the last couple with an illness, he's not on the injury report, and the triangle Eric Paschall has been upgraded to probable. So we're not going to have D'Angelo. We're not going to have Cauley-Stein. We may not have Kai Bowman. So there's going to be minutes for guys like Alec Burks to start at point guard. Draymond's going to get more ball handling. Damian Lee and Glenn Robinson are going to play a shit ton. You might get Jacob Evans getting some extra minutes there. Alen Smailagic might get some minutes depending on what happens with how this backcourt runs. Marquise Chris could start at center, or most likely does start at center with Willie Cauley-Stein out. Some real weird options happening there for the Golden State Warriors. We've seen the last couple of times that Russell's been out, Bowman hasn't started. We've seen Burke start or Draymond start at point guard. So I don't think he's like a 35-minute-a-night guy here with Russell out. But still at 3,700, if he does happen to play, there is some real value in the lubricant at that sort of a salary. Derek White at 44, I would care nothing for. Pat Mills, similarly, although he is a little bit of a Warriors killer, averaging 26 over the last 3 games at 4,000. That could be one of those ones that really doesn't have much roster percentage across the contests. DeJounte's at 5,700. DeJounte Murray, I like him at that salary in a positive matchup. Damo Lee's at 6,000. With these injuries, I think you smash that. I think he gets to that number pretty comfortably. DeMar is at 76. He's averaging 44 over his last 3. Again, a really strong option here. Bryn Forbes is the opposite of that, as is the drip Lonnie Walker. And then we go to small forward. Alec Burks is at 5,600. I think if we do hear that Bowman's out especially, Burks becomes a great option, as does Glenn Robinson, although Robinson is quite up and down. More of a tournament guy. I'd be all about Burks as a cash guy. Rudy Gay also playing well at the moment. My trust in that is pretty limited, but he has been doing well, so at least a name to consider. At power forward, Chris is at 4,000. I think he can really get the numbers going here and beat 20 points pretty comfortably. I like him quite a bit. While Draymond's at 67, it could be a blowout. That could limit his minutes, so that's the concern, I think, with Green. He is a GPP option, while LaMarcus Aldridge at 8,200, really putting up massive numbers at the moment. The worry there is, again, the blowout might limit some of his minutes, but I don't dislike him. Paschall, I think, will be on limited minutes. Trey Lyles is tough to rely upon, as is Smailagic or Spellman. At center, Pirtle's at 3,800. He played 23 minutes last game and delivered, as he pretty much always does. Getting those minutes is the tough part for him, so he's a little bit tough to rely upon at this point with the rotations in San Antonio. The next game up, we've got the Denver Nuggets and the Houston Rockets. We don't know if Jim Harden or Clint Capella are playing. Russell Westbrook will return after resting in the last game, but if Capella is out, Isaiah Hartenstein and Gary Clark will get a boost in their playing time. You'll get more Austin Rivers, Ben McLemore, and Chris Clemens with Harden out, but it won't be the same as last game where Clemens put up big numbers and Ben McLemore was huge minutes, and we had Eric Gordon going off because Westbrook will be back. So don't forget that factor. It's not the same as last game where a lot of those guys really put up those big numbers. Paul Millsap is listed as out for Denver as well. So that is worth noting. So Jeremy Grant will likely start again. Some extra minutes for Michael Porter Jr. as well, while Gary Harris is listed as probable.
Nice, Gary!
Now remember, last game Porter started in place of Harris. I don't imagine that'll be the case here, so a lot of his value will drop off. At point guard, the Blue Arrow, Jamal Murray, 6,600. More of a tournament guy. I'm not really sure I have that much faith. While Westbrook at 9,600. I love Westbrook in this one, especially if Harden happens to be out. Monty Morris, Austin Rivers, they're not going to do it. Gaz Harris is at 47. I don't really see the value in using him. While Harden at 11.5. If he plays, I think that's a really strong option. But of course, we just don't know at this point. Benny McLemore at 38 would be a GPP guy in the situation where Harden sits. And then on to your small forwards, Eric Gordon's at 43. He dropped 26 in his return. A lot of usage, a lot of shots, which is usage, of course, with the absence of Harden and Westbrook. So it's a little hard to get a full read on him. More of a tournament player than anything. While Barton's at 63. I like his cash value here, Willie. In this one, averaging 34 over his last 3 games. Dan House dropped 31 last game at 5,200. Again, that's, I think, a large factor due to the absence of both Jim and Russ. At power forward, Jeremy Grant's at 42. I'm all about that. I like that one for him. PJ Tucker's really struggling. 15-point average over the last 3. Not a good DFS option regardless. While Porter dropped in 28 in 26 minutes last game. Michael Porter, he's at 3,900. You could throw him into a GPP. I just think that level of production where he shot 80% from the field and played those 26 minutes in his first start is probably an unrealistic aim for him to get to. At center, Capella's at 7,900. Maybe a little bit too high, I think, going up against Jokic, although he does average 43 against the Nuggets. Jokic himself at 9,300. He's really cranked it up at the moment. That is a high salary. I don't dislike him. I just think we can do better at center, while Mason Plumlee at 4,000 is not going to do it. And then Isaiah Hartenstein would be the play if Clint does happen to be sidelined. The next game up, or the last game up, is the Dallas Mavericks and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Dennis Schroeder and the Italian cock Danilo Gallinari.
Hands off my cock!
They are both questionable for OKC. Ryan Broekhoff, Tim Hardaway, and Luka Doncic are all questionable for Dallas. Of course, if Doncic is out, we know that Jalen Brunson steps up. And Delon Wright gets an option there. If Hardaway is out, you're going to get some Seth Curry, maybe some cheeky JJ Barea in the mix there as well. While for OKC, if Schroeder is out, there's a lot more Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You get some more Darius Bazley if Gallinari is out also. At point guard, Doncic is at 10.8. I really like that value. Remember, he did come back into last game after hurting himself. We'll see what's happened there. But Doncic at 10.8 looks like a pretty good option. Brunson would be the play at 3,900, would be the absolute lock, guarantee, must-play sort of a guy if the donk is actually out. At shooting guard, Schroeder at 6,200 was putting up some strong numbers beforehand. I think that might be a little bit on the high side for him, while Gilgeous-Alexander at 74, he's averaging 41 over his last 3. It has helped that Gallinari has been out, so I'd be a little bit hesitant if both Schroeder and Gallinari are playing to roster Shai at that sort of a salary. Delon's putting up big numbers, 32 a night over the last 3. He's getting steals, he's scoring at a high rate. He's at 4,900. I'd be more tempted to use that if one or both of Hardaway and Doncic are out. I wouldn't really care too much to use Tim in this one. He is at 5,000 and really has been struggling lately, averaging just 24 over the last 5. The Italian cock himself, Gallinari, is at 6,000. I think there's really decent value in that, assuming he plays. That's a pretty good price. Finney Smith has played pretty well recently, but at 4,200, I just don't get excited about him from a DFS perspective. Bazley's at 3,900. He had 22 last game in 30 minutes. I just don't think he's really a massively viable option. Porzingis at 8,400. We know with Doncic out, he's going to beat that number. If Doncic plays, then that's a fade situation. Kleber's not going to work for me. Well, Nerlens Noel at 5,000. Noel's averaging 27 over the last 3, and it's not because of elevated minutes. It does make him a little bit risky because it's coming on really, really high defensive steal and block rates, so that makes him a marginally risky sort of guy. I probably wouldn't go that direction. While at center, Steve Adams is at 62. Has done really well against Dallas in the past, 37 average, but that is in 37 minutes, most of that coming last season. While Powell at 5,000, he's actually playing well, and I like Dwight Powell as a strong cash guy. Probably limited upside, but a really decent cash type player here in this one. If we just go across to DraftKings now, go through some names. Westbrook and Harden come out as relatively strong options here, assuming that Harden's going to play. And of course, we get more excited about Westbrook in the scenario where Jim does happen to sit. Of course, we've got those Warriors guys like Bowman and Chris and Burks and DeJounte Murray's there. Terrence Davis, Serge Ibaka, Damian Lee is another guy. Kevin Porter, Freddie VanVleet, Jeremy Grant, DeRozan, Chris Paul, Nikola Jokic, as well as a relatively good DraftKings option. That'll do it for me today, guys. And I hope everybody who is out celebrating New Year's Eve, whether it's here in Australia, over there in the States tomorrow, or today, depending on when you're listening, whatever it is, make sure you have a great time, but more importantly, stay safe. Make sure your friends are safe. Make sure your family's safe. And again, thank you for everything in 2019. It's been a fantastic year, by far my most successful, with the growth of the podcast, with the growth of the YouTube channel, with writing for Yahoo, doing work for Betfair, the stuff at Basketball Monster, of course, and the overall growth of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's been super successful, and that's thanks to you guys who interact with me, who watch, who consume, who read, who download, who do all those things to help help out this show, especially the support I received during the accident of my partner, which did cause a lot of stress in my life, and in terms of some unpredictability with some of my schedule stuff. That's been really, really helpful. So I thank everybody for that, and I hope everybody has a fantastic New Year's, and most importantly, everyone remains safe. Don't forget, subscribe. That's your New Year's gift to me. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment. Leave your well wishes. Leave your comments. Leave your thoughts on 2019 below on this video. Guys, we are done here. I'll see you in 2020. Bye. Isaiah Thomas.